democracy, institutions and individuals. Why I asked the topic to be named such that was because when I resigned, somebody asked me that, do you think your action will, mean anything? Your resignation would mean anything? It is just an act of individual doing something. It won't affect at all. And I remember answering that when institutions fail, individuals have to stand up. So that is all that is left as individuals for us to do. When we see that institutions are failing, then what do we do as individuals? Then individuals have to step up and stand up and say that this is what we believe in, and this is where we find the institutions are failing. So that is why I requested maybe the topic could be named like that. Feel free to ask any questions. I'll take maybe 20 minutes to complete my sessions, and we will keep more time for interactions if that is okay, ma'am. So we'll so that more and more questions can be answered.
Yeah, that's fine. Or you may want to speak for 20 minutes and then they will ask questions.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then Kannan, then you could resume if you want.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. Thank you. So, so as ma'am had said a little bit about myself, I am from Kerala. I did my engineering from Birla Institute of Technology, Mesra. Then I joined Freescale Semiconductors or Motorola Semiconductors, and I was in VLSI field for around 4 years. And during that time, it was when got interested in, you could see those kids who will come to our own sector where we are living, and they used to collect waste, sell it somewhere else, or they used to beg very small kids. And then we started engaging with those children there, and then we learned that just 50 meters nearby itself, there is a government school. But these kids can't go to that school because they are from the slum. So we tried to put them in the school repeatedly. Within 2 days, 3 days, they'll come out of the school.
Yeah, please mute.
Akash, could you please mute your video?
Everybody should mute their video. Their audio, sorry. Mute your audio. Switch on your video. Okay? Yeah.
So then, because we usually go by saying whether the teacher-pupil ratio is good, whether the number of teachers and whether the number of students are adequate, whether there are infrastructure in the school. These are the normal discourse that I was exposed to till that moment. And when I went there, we were repeatedly putting the school kids there. These were migrants from Bihar, and this is Noida is in the Western UP. And this government school teachers or the ecosystem there won't let these kids come in that school and learn. And for a person who's coming from Kerala, for me, UP Bihar, we used to club together. We used to say UP Bihar. And then when I went there and learned was that for UP Bihar is different, and for Bihar UP is different. So there was a complete difference of perception that people there also had for each other. And these kids, because they are from slums, they used to be made to clean the midday meal, dish, or they used to be made to clean schools and all those things. And so within 2 days, they would say, we don't want to go to that school, we'll come out. Repeatedly, this was happening. Then 3 of us actually started teaching those kids every day. So we'll go to a job. After in the evening, we'll come back and started teaching the kids. We tied up with a private school. They said that if they clear an exam, we'll give them admission there. And we kept on doing that. We tried to in between meet a district education officer. In every district, there is an education officer. He wouldn't even meet because education is his field. It's not for us to get involved. So it was quite a bad experience then. Then after a certain period here, then I moved to Atta Market. It's a sort of a posh market area, malls and all those things are there in that area. And then I started teaching kids there. And then that's where I met my wife, who had also joined me for teaching kids there. Then we realized that these kids would come, sell some flowers or, beg for some time in Noida for a week. Then these same people would go to Gurgaon next week, or maybe some Ghaziabad some other time, or Faridabad some other time. They would even go to Jaipur some other time, and they would still keep traveling. So we were trying to create a bond, and in next week you would find these kids are not more there. That's when actually my wife, she had the interest that, okay, we have to get into the system to change it. We can't do anything by being outside and doing this kind of peaceful activities. Even though we were getting satisfaction out of it, that we are doing something, it was not making any difference. So while for personal satisfaction, it was good. But if you wanted to make that impact, it was not good. That was the feeling that was there at that point of time. And she joined, and I sort of we had just got married, and I felt like, at least we can do some dating inside the classroom. So I also joined, and that's how my civil service journey started. Otherwise, I was not very keen on civil service that way. And of course, I gave my exam in 2010 while working. I couldn't clear. I cleared my preliminary, mains I couldn't. And when my marks came out of mains, then my wife again suggested, then see, you got decent marks, then why don't you resign and study for 1 year properly, and then we can see. So then I did that, and in that attempt I got into the system. So I had a very weird cadre preferences, like first was Uttarakhand, second was Agmut, third was Bihar, and you would find even Jammu Kashmir and Chhattisgarh, etc., in the top 10 preferences. Because you felt you would like to be where you can do certain things, you can actively be part of something, some change. Then I was in Delhi, then went to Mizoram, then came to Daman, Diu, Dadra, Nagar Haveli. I was there when I submitted my resignation. In fact, on August 23rd, it's been a year now. To be clear, that my resignation has still not been accepted. So the government is still saying I am an IAS officer, even though I don't agree to that. I have submitted my resignation. So now, after my resignation, I was vocal about certain things. This is just to clear my own status as of now. So after my resignation, since I was very vocal about the suppression, the kind of suppression that the government of India was doing in Jammu and Kashmir. They have given me started a disciplinary proceedings, and they have said that my interacting with media on those issues has affected India's foreign relations. And as a civil servant, if you speak something which can affect India's foreign relations, then they can dismiss you. So they have not processed my resignation, but instead have found a charge through which they might dismiss me maybe sometime in the future. But I have refused that. I will not be part of any of those proceedings. They may go ahead and do whatever they want. So that is my current status as of now. Coming to the fact of why did you resign, and especially someone who had tremendous belief in the system, and that is why you entered the system to work. The fact was that if governments always have had this power maximizing tendencies. I think this is a statement I have often repeated. It's not just this government. Every government has had this power maximizing tendencies, in the sense everything should be under our control. You've now just formed a government, but then you suddenly realize, okay, but they don't listen to you. Judiciary don't listen to you. Media is still acting all, independent. This bureaucracy is still trying to be, this cannot be done, that cannot be done. The constitution is still something which is supreme. So you find that your power is actually limited. Even though you come to power, your power is limited, because that is how a democracy is designed to function, with checks and balances, where the rule of number is tempered by rule of law. And this part of it, most of the governments find it a little, especially when a new government comes into power and with tremendous mandate, they find it little limiting. And the first thing they try to do is to maximize this power, so that all these hindrances in their own project to become the nation great, they don't see it as checks and balances of a democracy. Usually what it is seen as a hindrance to their dream or their mandate to make the nation great, make the country something where it has to be. And in that pursuit, you effectively start belittling or effectively start nullifying the presence of every other institution in the country. And the more powerful you are as a government, the easier for it is to do. Or the weaker the individuals who are in the other institutions, easier it is to, suppress those institutions. So initially, when I first said this, that when institutions fail, individuals have to stand up, I was still having only a very limited view. I thought institutions can operate independent of individuals. But after that, I learned actually institutions are also individuals. Because if you are a Supreme Court judge, but you have problems as an individual in your home, and if the government is trying to manipulate you because of your weaknesses, then it is not the institution that is failing, because you are a weak individual in a strong institution. Effectively, you will bring the institution down to your level, because you are weak and the institution is strong. So unless a strong individuals man strong institutions, it cannot survive beyond a point. And we are still a very young nation. We are a very old civilization, but we are still a young nation. So our institutions have also not to the stage wherein, irrespective of the individuals, it can survive. No, we still take session's name and say that election commission has become election commission because of an individual. That purely shows how much of an individual influences an institution. So this is something I learned after talking to a lot of people and in fact interacting with a lot of people during this past 1 year. So when especially this August 5th incident happened, before that also it was quite, people are all, anybody who was following those proceedings before those August 5th, you would understand that people are saying a great, some big terrorist attack is going to happen in Kashmir. So all the tourism had to be stopped. All the pilgrims, they were asked to go back. All the migrant laborers who were there, they were asked to go back. Every single leader of, who could say anything, they were arrested. Every person, every youth, you or me or anybody who could even open our mouth and 4 people would listen, they were arrested. So anybody and everybody were detained to prevent something. And what was that to be prevented? The prevented was a democratic response to what was the government's decision. So when it was said that, especially so the events preceding to August 5th during that period and afterwards, that sort of made me realize that it is not the government's decision per se, but government also decided that people won't be allowed to respond to that decision, which is essentially a right of the citizens, because these two rights coexist. The mandate of the people give the government a right to decide, but the fundamental rights give the citizen to react to those decisions. And these coexist. This cannot be one or the other. This is, very much essential to a democracy. And the government took a decision, and at the same time it decided, no, you can't respond. As a citizen, you can't respond to our decision also. Whether the decision was wrong or not, we'll come to that also. But this was the first part. And I remember on August 5th, because it was on August 5th, in fact, after some turbulent period for me, my career for a month or so, I was given again some additional responsibilities, chairman and managing director of a couple of smart cities, then secretary urban development, in addition to being an MD of a DISCOM and secretary power, etc. So on August 5th, when this was happening, I was in the chamber of our political administrator. I was sitting there, and this was happening, we were able to see it on the TV. And I was told a particular sentence. I was told that, see, Kannan, 370 had to be removed was done by, the decision was by the government, or let's say Modi or the prime minister. But how it should be done was taken by the bureaucrats. And if you were in that place, you would have simply said, sir, this is not constitutional. This is not against, this is against fundamental right. This is not under the law. You would have said all these excuses and you wouldn't have done it. You have to understand what is the role of bureaucracy. Bureaucracy's role is to find legally acceptable way to implement political will. See, the wording is very clear. Legally acceptable ways to implement political will. So it is not to do illegal things. You are not being asked to do illegal things, but you are asked to do legally acceptable things on what could be wrong ethically, what could be morally wrong, what could be otherwise, blatantly wrong, but still legally correct. So when a person, I am the district magistrate, and I am asked to arrest somebody under PSA in Jammu Kashmir, or where I was, we had PASA, Prevention of Anti-Social Activities Act. As a district magistrate, I have every authority to arrest somebody and send somebody to jail for 6 months without even trial, without any trial, without going to the court. And that power is legal. And when the political administration or the political government is asking you to arrest X and Y for their religion, for their political views, whatever be it, arrest X and Y, I am actually using a legally acceptable way. I am not doing any illegal thing. I am doing perfectly legal thing. And I am arresting 2 people, which is actually blatantly wrong, because it was their fundamental right to not be arrested. And it is because, to my subjective judgment as to whether that person should be arrested or not, I am not using my subjective judgment. Instead, I am simply listening to political orders. So when the act was made, the act intended the position, the officer, to be independent and take an independent view whether a person is a threat to public order. And that is why the preventive provisions were given. But the same legal provisions can be used to arrest anybody when the individual who is manning it is start simply taking orders instead of applying your own provisions. So this is where I understood that bureaucracy that way is very limited. If you define it as a institution which just finds legally acceptable ways to implement political will, then it is again limited. Then you are just a tool, and whether you want to be that or not. During this period, again, you would see after August 5th, I came back and I was having again my discussion with my wife, and she said, look what is happening. They have shut down an entire state. And I said, yes, but no, wait. India is not, Indian institutions or India as a country is not so big. There would definitely be questioning. There would be questioning from media. There would be questioning from the judiciary. There would be a lot of people asking this, because you can't simply shut down an entire state. That is not acceptable. That was the faith. And what happened afterwards? Immediately afterwards, you will find the PCI chairman giving an affidavit to Supreme Court saying that we are perfectly fine with all the restrictions the government has placed on media on reporting on matters of Kashmir. This is what Press Council of India chairman gave an affidavit to the Supreme Court saying that we are okay with the restrictions government has put on us. Media is telling this. So we'll just go by what the government is asking us to report. We don't have any issues. When the media starts taking that position, then you saw that my own senior, like Shah Faisal, he had resigned to form a political party and he was actively doing something. And he was detained from Delhi. I remember asking in a couple of groups where I was part of, the IAS groups, that why is he arrested? Has he done any crime? What purpose? If as a citizen, if I'm trying to go from here to Turkey or US or Europe, it's my right. Tomorrow, if you want to go to Turkey or US or Europe, it's your right. How can you be arrested for that? And then you are detained and then brought back to Srinagar. The funny thing is, the act which was used, the PSA or the act which uses, it is to prevent somebody, a troublemaker, from being in the area. Here, the same provisions are used to arrest somebody from Delhi and then bring him back to the troubled area. It didn't make any sense to me. Then I asked, why was this detention? Why was this? Nobody is ready to say anything, because it was the same kind of fear that people won't express. People don't agree, but people don't express. So when you disagree and keep quiet, that was the phase that was going on. Then we saw the habeas corpus petitions being filed in the various habeas corpus petitions. And you would say that is the basic minimum of fundamental rights, exercising your fundamental rights. And you would see the court would say, a wife would go to the court saying, my husband has been detained illegally by the government. So I filed this writ to bring him here and then at least explain it to me. Why has it been arrested, detained? You would expect the court to direct the government to at least bring forward the reasons as to why the person. Here the government would say, no, the court will give us 15 days to come out with a reply. And the courts would happily give those 15 days. Means people are detained left, right, and center, and their family members are going to the court. That is the only place where you can go when you feel you have been wronged by the government. And when you're going to that place, the courts are becoming easily convinced, in fact, very willingly convinced by whatever the government is saying. And the government says, yes, go ahead, we need 15 days. The court says, okay, take 15 days. And then in 15 days, you would see the same people pressurizing the family to make them withdraw these petitions. This is not democracy. This is mafia. Somebody going to court and then you threatening people to withdraw those petitions. Otherwise, we'll take more actions. And then those people withdrawing those petitions. This is not how our country is supposed to function. This is not how it was envisaged to function. Irrespective of the government, irrespective of the decision on which this was being done. And these were happening one after the other. And it was in a matter of 10, 15 days. It was not like if you're following those period, you would find PCA is saying you don't want, your judiciary is not doing, your bureaucracy is not ready. And then I felt like one by one that, this is getting a little too hot for me. It's like a frog in a boiling water kind of a thing, that it is, if I escape it now, it's fine. Otherwise, I wouldn't realize, it will be too hot for me to escape. So then I realized, okay, I need to resign and at least say certain things. I can't continue like this. And this was not just what was happening in Kashmir, because my own personal experiences were only corroborating what was happening and I was reading. So my personal experiences were that before the elections, the PASA was there, this similar acts and you are asked to arrest two people, and both of them happen to be Muslims. And then you asked before elections, 2019 elections, I was district magistrate, so arrest two people. So I said, how can you arrest? There have been no cases against them for the past 7 years, and in all the cases they have been acquitted. So how can you ask them to be arrested? But then you would get the files duly processed and filled and onto your table, because it's not necessary that everybody would oppose the way you do. You will get that file. Then I said, I won't. It went for 15 days. Then high level meetings were taken. Just that, why am I not issuing orders to arrest two people? I said, how can you do that? How can you arrest two people just because I'm not convinced? And then I said, and look at whom you are going to arrest. Two people who have families, who have their kids. And if I'm going to arrest somebody from them, it is not just him, it is entire family is going to be affected. His kid is going to see his father being arrested and taken to jail as if he's a criminal, where he has not done anything. For 7 years, he has not been doing any crime or anything at all. How can he ruin somebody's family like that? Then I also mentioned this thing, and also conveniently, you only put Muslims' names there. Then within half an hour, I got another file of a Hindu saying, okay, we're not bothered about Hindu or Muslim. Arrest somebody, arrest everybody. So that's when I realized, it is not about Hindu, Muslim. It is about state. It is about the state's power. It's about the government. So yesterday I was writing this, if I have to define this government, it won't be majoritarian. It won't be nationalistic. It won't be Hindutva. It will be statist. The state existing to further its own power. It's a perpetual, relentless pursuit of its own power. There is nothing beyond it. You would see that when the migrants case had happened, they were not protesting. They were not stone pelting. They were people who were just wanting to go back home. And as a government, you would have been supposed to provide them facilities. You didn't give them food. You didn't give them water. You even stopped trains and bus, saying that you can't go back home from wherever you come. So you can't survive where you are. You can't also go back to where you want to. They didn't protest because we are not citizens. 90% of our country are not citizens. We still consider ourselves as subjects. And so subjects of a benevolent government or a benevolent ruler. So they didn't respond. They didn't ask. They just took their kids, carried their luggages and started walking. If you're in Mumbai, you could see them walking from here, and you would ask them where you're going. You will say Allahabad, 1200 kilometers. 1,200 kilometers we made our own citizens walk in 2020. 2020, we made our own citizens walk, a lot of them. So, I can't imagine making people walk 1,200 kilometers. And they walked. And it was not the end of it. They were beaten up at every border. The moment they would enter Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh border, police would beat them up. Then when they enter Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh border, then again they'll be beaten up. Why? They wanting to go back to their home because the government is unable to provide them the facilities. Because the precise reason is this: we have given an order, we have given a direction. How dare you disobey? How dare you, violate those orders, irrespective of the whether those orders are reasonable, whether the orders make any sense? No, we have given a direction. So you are bound to, listen to those directions. And if you don't do that, then you will take the brunt of the state. And it was what was being you take demonetization, the exact same thing. We said, we have done something, you will all listen to it. You will simply obey it. It's not the matter whether you have a right to your own money or not, but we have done something in what we think is in nation's interest. And since we think it is in nation's interest, you all have to carry the burden of that decision. There is a JFK quote. I think you might be all aware of it. Don't ask what the country has done for you, but ask what you have done for the country. This government particularly has replaced country with government, maybe wrongly read or rightly read, country with government, and has phrased this like, don't ask what the government has done for you. Instead, ask what you have done for the government. And so every citizen, every individual in this country is being asked as to what they have done for the government rather than what the government has done for them. So the relation is completely the other way. The relation is we are continuously made to feel obliged or, to do something for the government. So we are given repeatedly tasks, do this, do that. And if we don't do it, we feel, we have not done something right for the country. It may be any task. It would be any ridiculous thing. Why can't you stand in line for ATM for a few hours when the soldier is dying in the border? Yes, you are being asked to do something. Because why can't you light, a diya or maybe fly a paper aeroplane from your balcony? Why can't you? It's a simple thing. Why can't you do it for the country? It is, to give a feeling of, so this continuous questioning where the citizen is, perennially feeling obligated, where he feels that he is not doing enough. He's not doing enough for the government. He's not doing enough. He's not worthy enough to ask anything of the government because he is the criminal. He is the one who is, not enough. He's not sufficient. He's not worthy. So this feeling, and you would find it genuinely being felt. That
It's
is because
12
of that
o'clock.
single thing has been made completely opposite. That do what you can for the government rather than what the government can do for you. This particular thing has become a philosophy. During that period of 10, 15 days, I was going through these emotions again because what was my personal experience was again being seen in a larger scale in Kashmir, where you could see blatantly what was being done when where I was sitting in chair was being asked to do me in a private capacity where I could reject. Where I could reject all three. So you could of course say no to all those things when you are in this position of power. But where in somewhere else, when the decisions are made not through you but through somebody else, and you will find that something is blatantly wrong, then how do you react to it? You can keep silent, or you can write something, maybe say something in your parties when you are having your bureaucrats usually have, or we can sit together with our friends, or I can discuss with my wife. That's all. But I shouldn't express it anywhere publicly. When you feel something terribly wrong is happening in your country, in your own country, if I don't express my views in my country, where do I express? I can't express it anywhere else. This is precisely for which we got the freedom. And if I don't do that, where do I do it? So this thing was a little getting too suffocating, where my own urge to express that something is wrong, and it was in the context that I personally felt a lot of institutions are failing. If the institutions were doing, I would have continued to just, I'm just a public servant, I am a salaried personnel, I would have continued with that. But instead, when I felt it was not doing, it was failing, when your TVs were shown that Kashmiris are celebrating, mithais, they were eating sweets, distributing sweets during that. This is what the TVs showed it to us. The media showed to each one of us. We were told national integration is happening. We were told that national integration is happening because 370 is removed, or that special status of Kashmir is removed. National integration is happening. We were told terrorism is ending. We were told Kashmir is going to be developed. These were the kind of things which were told to all of us. And nobody was countering because we are afraid to counter. And this was not the first time. Demonetization happened, same thing. We were afraid to counter. I remember going to IIM Bangalore and asking this question there, how many of you thought at that point of decision that this was a good decision? Nobody raised their hands. And I asked, how many of you thought it was against the interest of the nation to take that decision? A lot of them raised their hands. Then I asked, how many of you actually expressed it? Because you are a premier institute who was supposed to guide the country. The country is not run by bureaucrats or politicians. Country is run by its intellect, the collective intellect. And that is what guides the country. This intermediate, decisions here and there is something very short term. But when you look at it in the long term, it is the intellectual discourse that guides the country forward. And when the intellects silence themselves, when the intellectuals and people who are supposed to guide the country decide that it is better to keep silent, not to express their own views, then we as a country is taking a step back, and we are, groping at dark. And this kind of a situation was happening. I asked them, how many of you expressed? And maybe very few, very few raised their hand. Maybe somebody wrote on Twitter, somebody. Then I asked, have you done any study on how much Indian economy has been affected by demonetization? Because if it was, let's say, done in US, it was done in Europe, almost every other institution in that country would have come out with studies of a major political decision taken by the government and its impact on the economy. We still don't have any proper study coming from, because studies are also decided and designed by the government fundings in a large way. So when people feel some GST, you remember at 12 o'clock in the midnight, Parliament was opened and some bell was rung and told that India is now awakening to its second independence. This was the term used. Second independence, GST. Now what is the situation that we are in? Nobody wants GST. Means everybody is quarreling as to who will take the burden of this thing. But we were sold it as second independent moment, the period of, And everybody, any newspaper you take, the next day it would have been come out as nobody questioned it. Nobody questioned whether in an essentially federal polity such a unitary economic policy would work or not. I remember I was in the service. I couldn't write many things. I wrote still a thread saying that I'm not sure whether it will be successful, because what is essentially a federal polity, wherein our entire movement was towards panchayat. We were saying that the funds, functions, and functionaries should be given to the locus, most local level of governance. From there, we are going to say that even states don't have the taxation powers. We are just going one step ahead. You know, we bypassed every entire process that we were in, and then we went back to a centralized economy kind of a thing. And we will find it more and more difficult as we go further, because the states have different. It's a very vast country. There is a reason a country like US does not have a GST, because each of the state has its own different priorities and policies, and you will find it different taxation system also there. Now, coming to this again, GST, same thing happened. You would find the same thing happening in the Kashmir, August 5th also. Nobody was providing a counter. Nobody was even ready to write a counter narrative as to why these steps could be wrong for Kashmir and also for the country as a whole. Why these steps could be wrong? Because these actions, these discourses are important to happen, especially in a democracy. So this was going on, and at that period of time, I decided, okay, it's important to resign now. But the key question was, so I wrote my resignation letter on 21st of August, and then I got a little bit cold featured, because I thought, what do I do after my resignation? I don't have anything, you have to earn your living also. So then for a day I was thinking whether to submit the resignation or not. And then we decided that if nothing else, I can start IAS coaching or something, and some kids would definitely come and learn from me. I will be able to make a living. So even though my wife is in IT, she's working in an IT sector, but we were afraid that they might come after her also. They might come after her job also, and then life would be really difficult for us. Then of course resigned, and then I thought I'll wait till my resignation paper is accepted before I speak up on the issue. But unfortunately, in one of the WhatsApp groups I was part of, I wrote these things that I am resigning because I don't agree to the fundamental rights suppression that is happening in a large section of our country, and the silence around it. The kind of silence the nation is keeping around it, that is even more unacceptable to me. Government, what it is one part, but the larger part is the silence. That is not acceptable, and I think I cannot continue being a silent bureaucrat in the circumstances. And immediately after that, some media, they called me up and said, you are resigning in protest of abrogation of 370. I said, no. I said, no, we have a screenshot. So I said, okay. So there is no point. So some good journalists, they had their sources in those WhatsApp groups. So they immediately, then I thought there is no point. So I'll speak up. Then I started speaking, and that is the reason why my resignation is still not accepted. So this went on. And during this period, in fact, it was much more of a enriching experience, because been traveling to, I think I must have traveled to 18, 19 states during the last 1 year, some 60, 70 districts, had opportunity to interact with various sections of people. A lot of people were saying, no, you should go to Kashmir and have conversation there. But my own conviction was that what we are doing in Kashmir is not because of Kashmir. What we are doing in Kashmir is because a lot of us feel that this is what needs to be done in Kashmir. And a lot of us actually want these steps. And so it is important to talk to the rest of the country than Kashmir. It is important to talk to the rest of the country as to whether what we are doing there is right or not. So I remember going to Eastern Bihar and having this conversation, large gathering. And they said, yes, sir, CA, so theek hai, we don't agree with CA and RC and all those things. But why are you against abrogation? Don't you think the development will come in Kashmir? So this is Araria, I think. So I asked them, do you have 370 in Araria? So they said, no. Then do you have development here? So they said, no. So then I asked, so then what has 370 to do with development? So either then, if you think abrogation of 370 is the way towards development, then maybe you should ask for 370 first and then get it abrogated. At least that way development would come. Because what was happening was your own reality, your own lived realities and your own perceptions were getting diverged, because you know that your area is not developed. If you've been to Eastern Bihar, you would understand the kind of poverty that the place still is in. And but they are being thrilled. They are so happy and excited because now we'll bring development in Kashmir by removing 370. The vast divergence of the experienced reality or the lived realities of their own day-to-day experiences, and what is it that they are getting from the media, that divergence, and that was tremendous. And then I asked, then they said, no, but terrorism would stop. I was most baffled by this thing because it is as if terrorists were reading constitution and seeing whether 370 is there or not, and then they will decide whether to do terrorist attack or not. What kind of an argument is that? They're least bothered about whether 370 is there or not. Were they reading Indian constitution to decide? But we were sold on this too. Nobody countered, nobody were asked this question. In national integration, do you think Kashmiris feel part of India more, or do you think Kashmiris feel further away from? It's not that they were always feeling part of India at any point, but do you think now they feel further away, or do you think they still feel part of us? So this, not a single narrative that what they were trying to sell itself, was anywhere close to reality. But this is what we were sold, and we bought it. Nationwide, we bought it, and this is something which was dangerous because there was no counter narrative. People were not, at least I could be wrong, but these are the questions you should ask. Maybe you may be able to prove me wrong, but you should prove me wrong rather than just me buying it, whatever you're saying. I should be able to ask these questions, and the government should satisfy me with their answers to these questions, rather than say you don't have a right to ask questions. No, you have a right to answer. I have a right to question, and this is how the democratic or be as a journalist. This is how you should be also doing, because you should be asking those questions, and you should also be clear of the fact that they have a right to answer to those questions, and rather than shutting each other up. This is maybe, and this conversation, this lack of conversation, and after that conversation, I remember in Araria especially, then I asked, do you think it was good? And every single person were laughing. I think I don't know, sir, but everybody in WhatsApp and media said this is the case, and we believe. We didn't ask these questions. So this is something again that I learned during this period, because it was not that we were always asking. It was not that we were always, every individual in this country was made to feel like a citizen. No. I was DM Dadra Nagar Haveli. I would remember there were some chairs outside the office, and especially the tribal elderly. We had some 50% tribal population there. They would come and they would not sit on the chairs. This is like some 70 years after independence. It's their country. I'm being paid to serve them. The chair is purchased from their taxes. Be it when they purchase a tax, a soap, or or a comb, or whatever, rice or salt. Every time they're paying tax to it. Every single thing is being made from their money, and they still don't find it worthy enough to sit on the chair. They would sit down. I used to go and ask, please sit. No. We know this is where we are supposed to sit. This is where we are supposed to be, and we would be here. It was impossible to make them sit on chairs, and this is the country that we have. And so it is not that drastic change happened over a period of 2014 or this government came. No, this government, what it did, we were on a very slow progress. We were on a very slow progress from being a subject to citizenship. That is why when we talk about fundamental rights, when we talk about freedom of expression, 80 to 90% of the people are least bothered, because they never had it to begin with. They were still always getting beaten up by the local constable, and they are now also getting beaten up by the local constable. The talati or the patwari or the village officer or the revenue official, whoever you call it, they were afraid of that person, and even today they are afraid of the person. So when we talk about a freedom of right or a contempt of court or freedom of expression, why is it that a large population is not bothered about it? Because they never had that luxury to begin with, and they cannot be made to feel like they have lost something when they never had it. So this is the disconnect. But what has happened, these are all my own understanding, I could be wrong in all these assessments, is that we were on a path, I'll be very slow path, towards a citizenship to all our citizens. It was from 5% had this right, slowly it became 8%, slowly it could become 10%, and it could have been accelerated to 10 to 90 or 100 or something. But what we did, instead we stopped. We stopped and said, no, anyway, those 90% don't care about these rights, these speak up and all those things. What they care about is government delivery, whether they get the cylinder or whether they get a toilet. So this is what 90% of the people care about. These 10% of the people, they don't care about toilet or cylinder or anything. They care about the freedom of expression. So, but these are only 10%. So we don't have to bother about this 10%. So we can, in fact, use the justification because they didn't have all those rights to begin with to suppress them also. We stopped that path and turned back. We started on another direction, which was not to further the rights of the citizen, but to tell that you don't have a right, but we will deliver. You don't have a right to ask. तुम मांग नहीं सकते, हम देंगे. You can't rightfully ask, but we'll give. They will come out tomorrow with a scheme for migrants. But after telling them that you don't have a right to ask, if you ask, we'll beat you. But we will give, don't worry. Because that is what the government is there for. We'll try to do that. So this is again the disconnect that again once I realized, because we are talking about Benz when they are not even traveling on cycle.
Kannan, can I just interrupt to say that 4 students have raised their hand to ask
okay.
questions. So, Ajay, then Rishi Kumar, Nitika Gandhi, and Ishan. Okay, in that order. So you can ask.
I'll stop in 2 minutes and then.
Sure. Finish in 2 minutes. Sure. Yeah. Oh, there are more. In fact, more people. But then we'll first go through these 4, and then I will.
Yeah. So to come with, so my understanding of this is that instead of accelerating on our path to becoming more citizen oriented, why is there a judiciary? A judiciary is there, or judges or whoever. They are paid, given comfortable positions to protect the individual rights of the citizens. The rights of the citizens do not emanate from the courts. Those institutions are established so that they protect the rights of the individuals, especially when it is violated by the state, by the government. When the government tries to violate individual rights, the judiciary is supposed to protect. And that is the most fundamental reason why a judiciary is there, to protect the individual from the oppression of the state. And so that is when we find that in these institutions, all the institutions, in fact, the entire government, media, judiciary, all of us have come to a sort of an agreement that we all exist. Some of us get more benefit, some of us get less, to ensure and enhance the rights of the citizen. That is the path, to ensure and enhance those rights. As long as the government also believes in the same thing, and as a bureaucrat, I also believe in the same thing, you don't find a dilemma. You don't come in a dilemma, right? Your principles are the same as of the government, through which schemes, through X, Y, Z, those are all different aspects. But there is no fundamental difference in that. But when to ensure and enhance rights is not the fundamental idea of the government, then it becomes slightly difficult to work in such an environment. And that is one of the key key reason to resign. And then I also thought it's not just, for a period of time I understood it is not just political vacuum, it is also a lot of thought leadership vacuum is also there. We don't agree, we don't discuss, we don't, churning has to happen not just in political field, not just in bureaucracy, not just in business. It also has to happen in the intellectual space. It also has to happen in thought leadership space. At every space, this churning has to happen. And this probably was one of the way the CA movement, etc., that happened during that period. Also saw a lot of churning happening in all these spaces. I'm just winding it up now. So because I didn't have any structured thought or a session for you, I probably have covered a lot of parts that you want me to cover.
Yes, I think it's very good, very interesting, very inspiring.
Okay.
So Kannan,
maybe I'll take the questions now. And,
I'll just, we'll take the ones that have raised their hands, but you may also want to bunch them together. If you have a paper and pencil, a pen, maybe you could note it down, and then you could, because sometimes there could be, about one particular topic. a few questions, so we can listen to all the questions. And right now I can see that about 13 people have raised their hands, but we will you can take the questions and then choose to answer it in your way. Okay. Yeah, Ajay, ask your question.
Hello, sir. I'm Ajay from Kerala. So you
uh,
spoke about bureaucrats becoming a tool of a political motive. So my question is, in a democracy, wouldn't it have been better if politicians are given the responsibility and the onus to make public policy so that we can hold them accountable? So that's my question.
yeah. Keep your questions short. Thank you, Ajay. So keep it short because it's easier then. So shall we have Rishi Kumar asking his question? Rishi Kumar?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
waiting for sir to make finish it.
You can
Good
ask your
morning, sir.
question. Yeah.
Good morning, sir. I'm Rishi here. I just have two questions. One is in 2017, a former senior diplomat, civil servant, Mr. G.K. Pillai, had mentioned about the civil service rules, which gives power to a civil servant to say no to his political bosses.
Yeah.
I just wanted the name of that rule. And the second one, sir, looking at 370.
Yeah.
Would it be right to ignore the historical aspects, two historical aspects especially? One is in 1990, a set of community was illegally removed from Kashmir.
Yeah.
Second is 1977, a similar episode happened.
Mm.
Similar freedom of press was suppressed. Everything was cut. So is it okay to ignore when we look at 370, these two historical aspects?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rishi. So we'll have Nitika. Nitika, ask your question.
Yeah, so sir, I had this question that what did the revocation of J&K special status actually achieve? And also, will it bring some relief to the Kashmiri Pandits?
So, maybe can I answer these three questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't you?
First question was, I think, bureaucracy, political and policy making part. I agree, but it was quite funny because I've resigned for 1 year and I've been writing on various policy issues on my Twitter threads, and almost everybody would say, you should have been in bureaucracy. Even people who disagree with me vehemently because of the views, because of the things I write, they said you should have remained in bureaucracy. You shouldn't have come to all this political activism and all those things. The underlying assumption being, we don't want educated people in politics. That if you are good enough, then be in bureaucracy. You don't want to be. So when that becomes when you elect your MPs, when we elect our MLAs, not based on any of the other aspects, policy level, but based on primary identities like caste or religion or affinities or other aspects, then it will be little too much to expect. Whereas there is also very bad or a fallacy to think that politicians don't understand policy. That is also a wrong thing. Since they are connected, good politicians, I would say, who might disagree with them on all their feelings, but because they are connected to the ground, they understand what the public needs. And that actually helps in a large way to form and frame policies. So this is a slow process, democratization. There was a time when immediately after independence, it was all the MPs and, you would find leaders who were only from very educated class, you would only find very privileged class, while at that point of time, educated also meant privileged. But that was not a very democratic way of looking. Slowly things got democratic, and people from all aspects of all walks of life could become a leader and come to. But then it also got limited through their primary identities of caste, religion, etc. I think through a process we'll find maybe one of you who have no political background, who has nothing as such, could also aspire to be an MP or a minister or a prime minister or something. As a citizen, all of us have a right to dream that. I think we should encourage also. So policy making is a collective responsibility, because you also have the bureaucracy to suggest. It is not just bureaucracy and politicians who make policy. Even bureaucrats read articles written by people on the newspapers, and then we form our opinions on whether X is correct or Y is correct. Similarly, politicians also read it. That is why I initially said it is the intellectual discourse, it is the intellects that guide a lot of it, be it bureaucrat, be it politicians. So all of us come together. There are pressure groups, there are institutions, there is bureaucracy, there is politicians, and the public pressure. Then there is intellectual discourse. All of it come together to make policy, and I think it will continue to be that. And one thing that we don't have is an open lobbying effort like in many Western countries. Here, the lobbying is effectively very concealed and secretive in nature. So that is something maybe hindering a lot of. I remember one very particular incident. Maybe I'm going a little long, but a very particular incident. Very large industry was going under this IBC. Sure, that insolvency procedure was going on, and as an MD of a discom, we were about, because they were not paying the electricity charges, I was about to disconnect the power. Very large, very big fellow, and the guy comes to me and say, "Can you wait for 5 days?" I said, "Okay, 5 days is nothing. So, wait for 5 days, sir. The IBC law, we are going to get it amended. We are going to bring an ordinance." An industrialist is coming and saying, we are going to get the ordinance amended, and if you wait, you don't have to do anything wrong. In 5 minutes, we'll change the law only, so that you don't have to worry. And and it happened in 5 days, and that was lobbying, but completely opaque, completely out of the public eyes. And a law got changed, and an ordinance came, facilitates some certain transactions. So all these things come together. Transparency, yes, needs to be done. Second question was, I think, a little more interesting. It was about 1977, something of the same sort happened. 1990, 89, in fact, it started from 89, the exodus of Kashmiri Pandits, the violence that happened in the valley. And in that context of 370. 370 is a much larger context. In fact, you can start from independence and need not only limit to 77 or 90. And if you are going by what happened in 1977 as a justification to do it today, then I was serving in Mizoram as district magistrate of Aizawl, their capital district. And how many of you know that as a country we have bombed our own citizens? Indian Air Force has dropped bombs on our own people.
In Agartala, I believe they did it.
In Aizawl.
Miss Gandhi did it. Yeah. I remember. Yeah.
So we don't know our own history, because we, at a point of time, have bombed our own citizens, Air Force, not just fighting or anything. We just flew and carpet bombed the city. We are yet to acknowledge it or even apologize for it. And there is a big resentment still. And while we say that we have not bombed, we still find bombs from there. So that also, we have a history. Does that justify us bombing our people today? That is why I said, we were on a path of, it was not that we were all doing right things. No, we were doing a lot of wrong things. But whatever we felt as right at that point of time, we were doing. But we were on a path towards a better, rights-based or a citizen rights-based movement, wherein we were saying, that we will give paramount importance to individual rights. If I have 2 minutes, I'll just answer, in this context of my own interview, UPSC interview. At that point of time, India, this LTT thing was happening in Sri Lanka. And there was a country-specific resolution being moved in United Nations Human Rights Council. And India had a principled stand before that we will never support any country-specific resolution, that we will neither support or, we will not oppose any specific country in that. But when it came to this particular incident, because of the pressure from the AIDMK and DMK, both the parties, because of that pressure, the then government, in fact, went ahead and supported the movement, supported the resolution against Sri Lanka. So this was the question put to me in UPSC interview, that this happened. They thought I am from, with my name, they thought maybe I'm from Tamil Nadu. So the first question was, do you think this one regional state parties, couple of regional parties could, hold Indian diplomacy or Indian foreign policy to a hostage? Can you do that? I said, sir, Indian foreign policy cannot be held hostage to a few diplomats in Delhi. Rather, Indian foreign policy should be determined by what is people's will. So if there are 5 crore people in Tamil Nadu who feels that certain things should be part of our India's foreign policy, then that should definitely find space in India's foreign policy. It cannot be just subject to what a few people think is right. Then the immediate question was, but don't you think tomorrow some other countries can again come and pass resolution against India on human rights, like this. So I said no, because right now India has had that past, and our principal position that we will not support any country-specific resolution was a principle, but a principle arising out of our weakness. That we were worried that some other country could come and move a resolution against India, because we were worried about what could potentially be human rights violation in our own country. But there could be another principle that no, we support this resolution because we are strong, we are confident about our own human rights records inside our country. It is like this: if you beat your wife in your home, and if you see that a neighbor is also beating his wife at home, then you would not interfere. You would say that, no, that is his domestic affair, this is my domestic affair. It is a perfectly valid principle. These are private issues, these are domestic issues, this is not for me or him to interfere. It's a principle, but it is a principle coming out of your own weakness. If you are strong, you are confident that you don't indulge in domestic violence, you would say that is not a matter of domestic, but that is a matter of violence. And violence is a public issue, it is not a private issue. It's the same thing, both are principles. But one principle came out of your insecurity, the other principle came out of your confidence, of your strength. So this was my answer during my UPSC interview. That I had a lot of faith in, wrongly or rightly, on the human rights record of our country. And I remember crystal clear, remember saying that if India violates human rights violation, India shouldn't have to worry about what other countries think about us, but India should have to worry about what Indians would think about us, this government. That is what our human rights credential should be. That was my belief. And then I went to Mizoram, and then I learned that what and all happened. You would listen to stories that went far beyond. And I remember telling in 2017, in fact, to a very old lady, she was telling me some horrid things that happened with her. I said that was in the past. But India of 2019 will not do such things. That much I can. I can't say for the country, but I can apologize. And I said, I will, this country will not do such things anymore. And that is the reason for us to be together. And then you see this happening. So this is a journey. So whatever, we can't always right the wrongs of the past, but we can certainly make a decision to not do the wrongs of today or commit wrongs in the future. This is something that we need to be clear. Whether removing 370 an obstacle to Kashmiri Pandits rehabilitation or resettlement, because 370 was not preventing any Kashmiri from getting back to Kashmiri land. It was never the reason. It was not happy. It had nothing to do with that also. Do you think 370 in any way changes anything substantially? Do you think terrorism will come down? Do you think the enmity towards the state would come down? What is it that has changed? So you say X, so you say there is a bird sitting on that tree, and then you throw a stone in this tree. Both are correct. There is a bird sitting on that tree. You don't like that bird, but you are throwing a stone somewhere else. And then you are saying, see, but there is a bird there, no? So this kind of an argument, which these two arguments don't have any link together. And this then used to justify everything. Again, it was the failure of the state in 89, 90 also. Whose responsibility is to ensure the right and rights and protect the property of the citizen? It's the government. It was the government's failure in 89. It was the government's failure when a riot happened. It is a government which is supposed to protect. Why was it not protected? And today, retaliation against the other person is not the way to protect that wrong that was committed. Both the times government is the criminal, then also, now also. So this is not the path forward. The path forward is, of course, rehabilitation, resettlement needs to be done, and it needs to be done, should be done. But whether this is the way, whether alienating the rest of the people in Kashmir is the way to go forward for it, or was it to correct that wrong that was done? What is the way forward? So I think that pretty much also covers the question, the third question, what I think Nithika had asked. So on the achievement. In fact, we were told that Kashmir has become part of ours. What has happened? Effectively, a bit of Ladakh has gone to China. Nothing more has happened. Whether had the territory changed, where our border changed, is POK now part of India? Nothing. What substantially changed? And the way we used Whether 370 had to be removed or not, the constitution provided a way to do that. It said it should, the concurrence should come, or the consent should come from the Constituent Assembly. Okay, you can stretch it and make it into a legislative assembly. Effectively, what it meant was that any changes to this provision should come with the consent of the people. That means they should be taken on board, and that is how democracy should function. That is the trust that was built. And when you do it, no, legislative assembly, now I will remove the legislative assembly also. Now the governor is under the direction of the president. So the president becomes everything, and then he'll start doing the same. So again, it's all ways found out by bureaucracy only, finding legally acceptable ways to do the political bill. We found a perfect, whether it is legally acceptable or not is a separate thing, but at least legally shady ways, at least, legally justifiable ways to do things. So we did that. These context of 370 or 371, what is a law? The law is a collective codification of morals. And more often than not, it is effectively the morals of the majority, So 99% of the laws are effectively what the majority thinks is to be right. But then you also give some certain exceptions, because what 99% of the things is what the majority feels like, or what is right, or whatever is felt to be. Then you feel some exceptions to indulge the cultural insecurities that you find in certain places. That we also have things to say that no Indian, that right to freely move in the country does not apply to scheduled areas. Why is it there? Where tribal areas are there, you can't go and purchase land. In Dadra Nagar Haveli, in the tribal land, you could not purchase. You could have been Indian citizen, but you couldn't have come and purchase land there. No, it was protected. It was only for people there. Why it was there? Because largely it is decided by yours and my opinion. You also give certain part to cater to the sentiments, the insecurities, to offer a section of a people, which is okay. We don't need to be overly feeling discriminated by it. Was your life in any way affected? No. But somebody else was feeling emotionally attached to it. So you are not personally affected, but to prove a point, you said we can hurt your feelings. We don't care. And you did that. And we effectively did that. We don't care. We can do it, and we'll do it. And we'll put more force to ensure that what we did is we'll continue with that, which is okay. Tomorrow you can do it for 371 also in the Northeast.
Kannan, can I interrupt just to say that I'm going to read out some questions which have come. So you can just listen to them and see.
I think our time is over.
Ma'am, I had a question as well.
I know.
If I could be allowed to ask it, just
ask your question, because I had mentioned your name. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, sir. One, you and Shah Fazil, both of you, were in the system and resigned at this. You got out of the system, and but both of your resignations haven't been accepted. So is that procedural, or does that have to do with something, with the fact that you were against the system in some way later? Second is that
hurry up, Ishan.
I'll hurry up. Just bear with me for a while.
Yeah.
Second is that since the anti-CAA movement, even before that, we saw the rise in police brutality at the face of it. Like, it was literally at the face of it. The starting of this year itself was the JNU incident, which was, horrifying.
Yeah.
Later we saw in the March during the Delhi riots, where the role of the police in the Delhi riots. Then came Satankulam border.
Yeah.
So the question is that after the Thoothukudi case, there was a call for in a lot of social activist circles to defund the police, to dismantle the police force, and to build up an alternative structure where community social workers intervene instead of the police force. Third question is...
No. Ishan, I'll tell you why. Because there are 15 more people waiting. Ishan, not fair, right? Not a fair thing.
Mail me. I'll definitely answer.
Kannan, I'll just read out these.
If you wouldn't have interrupted, I would have already finished my question. Third is the basis of priority of cases that are aligned in that are taken up by the judiciary. Do you believe that needs to change? And fourth, your view on capital punishment.
Fourth? Okay.
Because most people on
Ishan.
capital punishment are people from the marginalized sections of the society.
I'll come
Acha,
someday to
Ishan, that's it. Okay, I'll quickly read these because it's unfair. We've already had this people asking questions. So very quickly, I'll ask these questions. Proiti says, sir, my question is, do you think individual activism alone can bring an institutional change? What is your opinion on collective and organized consciousness of many individuals within an institution? Can you compare the effectiveness of both? Okay. Now, there are two more questions, and I'll very quickly go through this. One is Khadija, who says, hello, sir. People are scared to speak up due to the fear of unwarranted arrest. Even a tweet is sufficient to incriminate us. How then do we raise our voices against this unfairness? And the last, oh gosh, okay, there are questions here. Are you okay with this? I'm just reading it because you'll find.
I'll go through it, ma'am. These are the questions from the chat, I think.
Yes. So you can go through the.
Yeah, I'll go through it and I'll just
yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
So just the chat and we are done.
Yeah.
You can answer them and by one we'll be done.
The answers are long.
Yeah.
That is my an issue from my side. So Ishan, I think the police brutality thing, agree. Especially when when the power maximizing tendency, the government feels this, the way it looks at any kind of resistance. It need not be even seen just in Muslim, Hindu, or that kind of a thing, because it Muslim Hindu thing comes into picture because it gives them a justification or a further feeling that all of us, these people can be made to be think like this and that people can be made to think like that. That is one sort of justification. But more or less, it is like nobody should be unnecessarily questioning the government, and you will find it everywhere. You correctly pointed out. Whether disbanding the police is the answer, whether having checks, there are many things that could be done. We don't even have a legislative assembly committees on police brutality. It's a very simple thing to start, to at least to conduct open hearings. Let's assume what has happened recently in Tamil Nadu, where 2 people were killed in the police station. Those people, at least concerned SP should have been, the DGP should have been asked to the legislative assembly and should be asked to explain, and publicly should be asked to explain. That would at least put a counter pressure. Otherwise, the policing, especially because it is the only force which has a monopoly over violence. State has the only monopoly over violence, and police is the only force which has the monopoly over, the legitimate monopoly over violence. So when they do that, there is no check. You you have an issue with constable, you complain with the SI. You have an issue with SI, you complain with the CI, and then the SP. So it is just within that structure itself. There is a reason to have an accountability mechanism at least Thana level or the police station level, and also at higher levels, wherein the people across are actually part of it. It will also become, I understand that it will also become a caste, or it will also become sort of a, elite capture would happen there in those committees also, which is fine, which is better than what it is today, because at least there are 5 more people to be satisfied at that particular situation. It will not be a solution, but it is again a step forward. So that definitely needs to happen. India could be probably, or South Asia, you can say, only place where if you're standing outside a road in the night and police can come and beat you, you can simply, they'll use a lathi and then give you 2 beat, and you wouldn't say, why are you beating me? You would say, sir, please, please don't beat me. Why are you being beaten up? You are a citizen in this country. Just because he has a lathi, you would come, and if it was anybody else, it was an assault. But if it just because it is police, you wouldn't consider it as an assault. You'd like, okay, it is, sir, please, hum chale jayenge. We'll go from here. Don't beat us. Okay. So that is what essentially is. That is what the state has been doing. And if there is police violence, there is definitely an assault from the police, we need to have separate, or stricter offenses for it. That it has to be made clear. If lathi has to be used, there is no reason why lathi has to be used anywhere. You can use the force to arrest a person. You don't have any right legally to beat anybody. So that is not at all there. Coming to, so you would see this increasing one by one also. Because what has happened is that, related to another question, which is that people are scared to speak up because they may be arrested. This feeling is what has made us to speak, keep ourselves silent. The fact is, a lot of us are getting arrested anyway, whether we speak up or not speak up. At some point of the other time, many of us because you can't just keep quiet always. You might not speak up on demonetization, you might not speak up on GST, you might not speak up on Kashmir, but you ended up speaking up on CAA, and then you are anyway getting arrested. So it, at some point, if you disagree in a democracy, you cannot suppress your own urge to disagree. You will disagree, and it is better to do it at the first moment of disagreement rather than keep waiting till till it's like in a relationship, rather keeping it piled up, and at a point of time where it just ruptures the whole thing. I have 2 FIRs against me.
Yeah,
One,
Kannan, I just want to, sorry, just want to interrupt to say, the chat will be sent to you and you can answer, is that okay?
definitely.
And then you can answer these questions because there are a hell of a lot of them. But there is one student who raised
What is
his...
our time limit? I think time limit is over. 12:45 is what the session was
Yes,
ending.
generally because we give them some time, they have afternoon classes. But there is one more question, if you will allow me to let the student ask this question, because he raised his hand much earlier, I know this. Munif Khan wants to ask the last question. The chat, as I said, will be mailed to you. Okay, and if you have the time, you could respond to them. Okay, so
Okay.
Munif, where are you?
I'm here, ma'am. Thank you.
Ask your question.
Entertaining my request.
Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Gopinathan. Just a parting question. Listening to your whole speech and where you described the disparities you had, what I did want to ask was, did it ever occur to you, or did you ever consider resigning or withdrawing much earlier? And if you did, why didn't you go ahead with it? Thank you.
Not this way. I never kept a premium on the service. That is true, in the sense that I had this thing very clear that if it comes to that stage, and that was the only way you could say no to a lot of things that was coming your way, and that was happening for a long period, in the sense. But because of the this thing, they were not changing me, or they were giving me positions one after the other. That was one side. At the same time, I was going on and saying this cannot be done, that cannot be done. That was because I had this belief that I wouldn't keep so much of a premium on my service or IAS or anything. So that was there, definitely. And every 1 year or something, I used to go on LinkedIn and update or something, and just to make myself clear that I should be not limited by what are these 3 letters. What happens is, till you get into the service, it is what you are, what gets you into the service. Once you are in the service, you get limited by those 3 letters. You feel that IAS is what you are. IAS is what it is because you have become. You are what you are. That is why you became IAS. It is not the other way around. And so to be clear on that, I used to keep updating myself just to write things. So, but never has it ever occurred, because it was always the case that my own position allowing me to do things, better things, was always much higher than the minor irritants that would come along the way. So it was always the case that you could do a lot more while being in the position than my own urge to speak up and say no. So you would find some ways, right? Demonetization happened, and I wrote something like, great decisions need not be good decisions. Nobody would have understood what it meant. Government certainly couldn't have taken any action on me. I just wrote great decisions because everybody was telling it to be a great decision. So I wrote, great decisions need not be good decisions. So you would find some silly ways to express your voice without being, going into all this. But this time I was clear because it was a bit blatant. It was a bit brazen, and the silence was also deafening. So it both came together.
Yeah. So Kannan, what we're going to do is, there are lots of these questions that are there. Is it okay that I send them to, it'll be sent automatically to Dave, and Dave will forward them to you? Is that okay? And if you have the time, you could answer them. But because it's always a risk, I know that many students have questions. And it's always difficult to accommodate everyone. And I understand you're very busy, but is it okay sending them to you, Kannan?
Yeah, that is perfectly fine. There are very, very, very good questions, actually. A lot of them. So I would definitely like to think over more than whether I'll be able to answer or not. So please share it. And,
I will certainly do that. And I just want to thank you so much, Kannan, because I think it's to have this perspective from somebody who has been within the system and who is talking about this whole erosion of democracy, or the fear that we all have that democracy might be eroded in this country. I think it's very, very important that we had this, particularly because we were talking about the struggles of democracy in other places.
And guys, one more thing, Kannan is also an accomplished musician. He's a drummer. Was your?
I see. Okay. Well, I just want to applaud. Thank you very much. Thank you. You're all muted, guys, so there's no point in applauding without unmuting yourself.
Sir, could you just clarify the question on procedural?
No, Ishan, this is greed. This is greed. Okay, enough. So, that's one of the vices of, that we have to guard against.
Interaction, ma'am. I hope someday we can have this interaction in a much.
I do wish we had given you a double billing, but sorry, Kannan, we'll do this another time.
Sure.
And, we'll send you the chat, and of course, you take your. If you can answer them, that's great. But even for you to read them, I think might be very interesting.
Yeah,
and many, many, many thanks for being here.
Ma'am, thank you also, and thank you to one and all. Be great journalists. I wish you the
tell them
best.
that. Yeah.
Don't let the country be defined by a mute generation.
Yeah.
Be speaking generation. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you very much, Kannan.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you,
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you
so very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Srinivasan, I just want to talk to you before you go, if you're there. Group C, I'm going to meet you this evening, right? Okay, good.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Okay.